As a bus user, the connective to advise you on the routes and the timings and everything else. Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant point, and here we are at a people's panel, but just to let you know, one of the things I didn't cover in the slide is around that whole point about engagement. So two of the things that we do now that didn't used to happen, firstly, we commission now a customer experience study, and this is right across the network, but there is several thousand in Dudley that take place each year. We do that in spring and in autumn now, and that gives us customer satisfaction feedback. But in addition to that, we just started a program called Busketeers, and the idea of that is to try and get people to specifically engage on their life. If you use bus tomorrow and you don't use it today, how do you get about? What's your experience, and how can you help us to improve it? So we've got a group of people, and actually, if you also want to be a volunteer, it would be great to have you on there, because I think this is really just about how we engage and get people's contributions to how we can make it better.
Okay,
thank you. Really helpful point.
And we'll get Pete's details so you can get in touch with him about becoming a busketeer.
Just going to keep you on your toes, Mel. Table 4, 5, 6. Has anyone got a question for Dave? Right, can we go to that middle table, table 5, then, for a question for Dave?
Hi, Dave.
Hi.
We're obviously really concerned about littering in the borough. And our question is a clean borough an education thing? Should we be starting at the beginning rather than picking up at the end?
I think it's a twofold thing. One, some schools or education systems have put it on the primary school curriculum. What seems to be lacking nationally is it starts with primary school and it ends with primary school. And the only strand that seems to be picked up is through the guides movement or the Cubs or the Scouts movement. And for some unknown reason, it just lacks. It's not a sexy subject, so it doesn't seem to get picked up in 13 to 19-year-olds unless people were going for something like a Duke of Edinburgh Award or something of that nature. So I think from a national perspective, it's lacking a little bit. The funding that hit local councils, the austerity times, that also hit people like Keep Britain Tidy. And their funds were dramatically lapsed, and they haven't been able to pick up their field in anti-littering campaigns. When I came to Dudley 40 odd years ago and I was given street cleansing in 1982, we were picking up litter. I'm coming towards my retirement, we're still picking up litter. And I dare say in another 40 years' time, we'll still be picking up litter. And I don't know what it is. Sometimes when we go abroad or we go into certain parts of this country, there's no litter. And I don't know what it is in an urban Met, but there seems to be a lack of control of people and no care. And I think that, you know, there needs to be some sort of passion out there to facilitate stopping it.
Great, thanks. Table 4, who's your question for?
It's a question for Dave again.
Oh.
Okay. Again, on the litter picking. The volunteer litter picking is absolutely great. It's great that people are interested in their own communities. However, council tax never goes down, it only goes up, and our services always seem to resort to volunteers. So is there not some way that we could, for instance, pay job seekers to become involved in litter picking, but use it as a carrot rather than a stick, and don't deduct from their benefits? Actually give them a reason to want to go out. And this can link into improving people's mental health, because if you're unemployed, it can be very, isolating. You don't have a reason to go out in the day. Well, this could be a reason. This could be a reason to get people out, get them used to sort of coming back into the workforce.
There's two things. There was a thing in Britain about 7 years ago called the Future Jobs Fund. It was getting young people to engage with local authorities in improvement in environmental standards. They had 6-month contracts. That scheme was to last 3 years. It ended after 2. The government pulled the funding. In Dudley spends about £9 per head of its rates bill on population to street cleansing services. In Sandwell, that is £16.97. In Wolverhampton, that is £12.97. There needs to be a move in Dudley to raise the ante to equivalent standards across all metropolitan borough councils. If I'd got another £3 per head of population, that would give me just under £1 million extra to be able to put on to engage on cleaning the streets of Dudley, which would benefit its residents and its businesses.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Dave. Okay, last table. Who's your question for?
Pete.
Pete.
I think you've probably partly answered this question already, Pete, but the question from this table was about what you're doing to encourage more bus usage and increase punctuality. And there was a feeling around the table that some of the things you mentioned around the real-time displays, for example, they weren't always accurate. And people were experiencing 2 or 3 buses arriving at the same time, and people felt there were some issues around maintenance of buses and the need for more and better bus shelters, for example, which might affect bus usage.
Okay, there's quite a lot in there, but I suppose there's a key point. I've been in the bus industry for 30 years now, and I've been a bus driver for 25 years as well. And one of the big challenges on being a bus driver and providing the service is punctuality and reliability. And the difference between buses and railways is railways don't have to share the tracks with anybody else, and buses have to share it with everybody else. And one of the scheme that I mentioned, the £24 million scheme, starting from Dudley going into Birmingham, it is to us just the tip of the iceberg. And particularly in the Black Country, one of the big challenges that we have, the Black Country network sort of snakes across each other, and there's some real challenges about keeping buses to time. So our big investment and our big programme is to try and seek government and others to give us further investment so that we can make buses reliable and punctual. Once we can do that, I think that in itself will attract more people to the service. I think people have got a minimum expectation in this day and age, and we should be able to meet it. So that's the big goal. I think in terms of the other systems you talk about, RTI, it's a really good point. There's some challenges because not all buses currently report to it. So we've got a big piece of work going on to see that every bus can report into the system so that it is accurate for every service at every stop. Shelters and stops as well. A big point, we have 5,000 bus shelters across the region at the moment, but there is always a demand for more. So looking at those, and I think, was there another key point that I didn't pick up on that?
Are we okay?
Maintenance of buses is absolutely critical. I think we work closely with the operators, and my team liaise with all the operators, and we liaise with the statutory person. The enforcer on this is a man called the Traffic Commissioner, who is based in Birmingham, and it's his team's job to make sure that all of the buses are safe and compliant. But what we also do now for any contracts that we have with operators, we additionally go into those garages and check to Traffic Commissioner standards.
Great, thank you. So I think we need to give our three, I was going to say three wise men, a round of applause for answering your question.